calling all instructional coaches, curriculum specialists, teachers on special assignment, or whatever they call you. I'm Matteo Souza.
And I'm Katie Ritter. As instructional coaches, we are often responsible for our own professional learning and can sometimes feel pretty isolated in our role.
That's why we're here, bridging the gap with a wealth of tips, tricks, and building a community of coaches.
So hit the restart button with us.
Recharge your coaching batteries.
And hopefully you'll leave feeling just a little bit less on your own coaching island.
Welcome back, everyone. In today's conversation, we're set to unravel the intricacies of what it means to be an instructional coach. We'll uncover trends in applications and resumes, shedding light on the responsibilities and challenges and the impact that coaches have in our schools. We'll delve into why someone would transition from teaching to coaching, explore the essential qualities that fuel success in this role, and confront the challenges newcomers might face. For those aspiring to step into the world of instructional coaching, jump in and learn more about this career. Our guest today is the one, the only, Tyler Erwin.
Woohoo!
Tyler is the assistant director right here of curriculum integration at Forward Edge. He has 6 years of classroom experience, including 4 years as a 7th grade language arts teacher. He's a Google certified trainer and a mentor coach, entering his 7th year as an instructional coach. Tyler supports his own district while also supervising our team of coaches right here. Welcome, Tyler.
Thanks, guys. It's been a while since I've been on the pod, but it feels really good to be back and looking forward to having a nice chat with both of you.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a new season if we didn't get you on early in the season here, Tyler.
I know, right?
Yeah, feels good.
Yeah. Okay, Tyler. So it's a little bit early at the time that this episode is released, but as we all too well know, interviews to get in people in place for next school year are right around the corner. So we thought that this would be a great episode. I know that I personally have been asked over the years, I can't tell you how many times, I want to be a coach. What should I do? Help me with some tips, send me in the right direction. So we thought it would make a great podcast episode when Mateus and I were kind of planning out, or when Mateus was planning out the season 4 here. And so we know that you have been in the thick of interviewing now for the past couple of hiring seasons. So we thought you'd be a great person with it being fresh on your mind to kind of put some tips and thoughts into practice here. So our first question, like I said, you've been pretty knee deep in applications and resumes trying to fill a position mid school year with us. And so starting from your experience lately, looking for instructional coaches, what do you notice? What are some trends that you're looking for, whether it be in resumes or in qualities or in the actual interview itself?
Yeah, I mean it's perfect timing for this, guys. I mean, I literally just ended an interview like 5 minutes ago, so I feel like I can speak to this on a higher level because I have been doing this for the past few weeks, kind of feverishly over winter break and everywhere in between. But even now, just as like 10 minutes ago. So I think some of the things I'm really starting to notice, and mid year is definitely different than maybe more like spring, summer. Oftentimes we are looking for people who are coming from the classroom. Maybe recently held a teaching position or maybe some sort of have maybe been an instructional support in some way, shape, or form. So middle of the year is a little bit different, but some of the big things I definitely take note of that people often express when they're applying for this role, or even when it just kind of comes out in their resume when you look at it, you're typically dealing with folks who have been recognized as like the go-to on their team. The person who's really good with tech, or they just kind of naturally have weave their way into like the instructional leader of their content area or their grade level. You're noticing that they have some leadership qualities kind of right out of the gate. So that would be one. And sometimes it's by choice. And of course, sometimes it's just, wow, that person's really good with tech and everybody always goes to them and they always seem to have all the answers. So that would, of course, be more of like a technology coach or an instructional support in that way. That's one of the big things I notice is it just kind of happens naturally. And then they get this taste of working with teachers and adults, and they're like, wow, I actually have a real passion for this, and I feel like I'm pretty good at it too. So that's one thing I've definitely noticed in a lot of our applicants. I would say another thing that often comes out when I ask why, like, why now? Why this role? Why do you want to leave the classroom? In many cases, it's not like, oh, I've lost my love for education or teaching and learning, or I can't take it anymore, like get me out. It's more so you just have a lot of people who want to make a bigger impact. They express that in a lot of what they do and they say, and they feel kind of limited maybe within their four classroom walls, and they want to do things more from the ground level up and help build from the curriculum side, help vision plan, help support teachers in a job that's really really difficult. And so I hear that a lot and I see that as I'm interviewing candidates. I would say too, most of them, and this is maybe a red flag that we'll talk about later, but most people who are applying to become a coach doesn't mean they've lost the passion for the work or like the passion for the classroom or of course for their students. Most of the time that never goes away. But I have noticed, especially after COVID, there are certain elements that they've become maybe a little disenchanted or apathetic to.
Mhm.
Some of the things have really changed after COVID that's made teaching hard. And so that's been expressed at times like, I haven't lost my love for the work, but man, it's a really hard job. That's part of it. And so I think that, having that self-realization is important, but also understanding that in this role, that hard work just doesn't go away. Now you're supporting the people who have to do that very hard, necessary work each and every day. So kind of fleshing that out a little bit. And then I would say the last thing I've kind of noticed trends wise as I think about it, one that I didn't think about until just now is we get a full range. People with maybe just a few years of teaching experience under their belt, and then maybe folks who have been in the classroom for years. And so I would just say maybe this isn't necessarily answering the question, but for us, when we hire, that's not like a death sentence. If you've only been in the classroom for just a year or two, it really is about like, where's your mindset? Where's your passion? What's your skill level and your instructional aptitude? And then, of course, if you have been teaching for a while, you can also lean on all of that great experience, which is awesome. But I think that that's something that I'm definitely seeing as well as there's a bigger range of applicants, some with little to no experience in the classroom, and now a lot of teachers with a lot of experience in the classroom who are looking to transition into this role as well. So, yeah, after I thought about it, there's definitely a lot of patterns and trends I've been noticing, but I've also been wading through a lot of resumes. So there's lots of things to share. That's for sure.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. I think the average listener of our podcast may not benefit as much from this episode because you probably are in a coaching role. But if you are looking to lift as you climb and bring some other people along, maybe kind of network and help some other folks get into a coaching role, this would definitely be a great episode to share with them. Or maybe you're looking to change schools, even if you are in a current coaching role. So looking to fresh up on some interview skills. But I think some of what you just described, Tyler, if that describes you, if you're a brand new listener being sent to this episode, or if you are a current coach and that describes an educator or colleague that might be a cool thing to send this episode to them to listen to and think about maybe that next step or a career change. In some kind of some flags of like, hey, this coaching gig might be for me. And then I also just want to put a pin and say that as you reference and you definitely touched on some content folks there too, Tyler, but your experience comes from hiring an instructional technology coach. So just as you kind of reference technology, I just want to kind of put a pin. And if you're someone who is maybe looking to become a literacy coach or math coach or a general instructional coach, just kind of replace anytime Tyler says technology with like those content instruction skills that are focused on there.
Yeah, and I think you pointed out with the second highlight, or the second trend that you mentioned about how there's always this desire to still want to be in education, just wanting to make a bigger impact. And I think that's something that I experienced when I was looking to switch out of being a teacher. That was one of the things I was having on my mind. I wanted to do. I didn't want to leave education. I wanted to stay in education. It's passion. I enjoy what I do, but I wanted to do more. I wanted to go further, and that's why I started looking. In a way, that sounds like you have good people applying in that regard.
I think so. Yeah, we've been fortunate in that way. So we have a lot of great people on our team. So it's important to protect that. But a lot of the traits that you find in great colleagues are often very evident in the people that you interview, and it becomes pretty clear very quickly. And so I think that the more you get a chance to be around people who, like you said, are hungry to make a difference, they're still motivated. They're not just trying to flee the classroom to get out of there. I think that that's just a testament to people who are wanting to always be consistently challenged and still have a deep love for the work that brought them here in the first place. That started off this career journey. So yeah, you're spot on with that, Mateus, for sure.
Well, so looking at people that are maybe considering this and thinking about potentially going in that direction, can you give us a pitch? Why should they? What's the bonus? Why should we switch away from teaching? Maybe consider coaching. What would be the benefits for us? Your sales pitch.
I'll give you a sales pitch from maybe how I would pitch this job to myself, 7 years ago when I made the switch.
That's
I was pretty uncertain, and I was very reluctant. Admittedly, like I love my job. I like being in the classroom. I taught seventh grade ELA. I wasn't necessarily like looking per se, but now that I've been in it, the sales pitch for me, looking back and thinking, had I stayed, still was a teacher, 7 years later versus like where I'm at now, I do think in this role, just by the nature of it, you're going to naturally like grow a lot quicker, learn a lot quicker. You're going to experience new aspects of the educational system that you certainly wouldn't as a teacher. I think I get to work with, now a lot closer with principals and curriculum directors and technology coordinators. And you just kind of understand how everything works together a little bit better instead of so focused on your day to day and your students in your classroom. So that would be part of it. I would also say too, I've said this to a lot of people that I interview, is even if you did this for a few years and you decided, I made the wrong choice, I got to go back to teaching, I miss it too much, you would be a better teacher.
Mm,
You would be a better teacher spending 2 to 3 years in this role than just staying in teaching as is over those 2 to 3 years.
that's a great point.
Because you just learn so much. You learn so much. You see things through the eyes of a bunch of teachers instead of just your little sphere. And I think that the nature of this role is to always be innovating and learning and showcasing new ideas, and in our case, new tech tools and new ways of teaching and learning. And so if I were to ever go back, like I would be maybe obviously a little bit of like out of my element at first, but I would be very well equipped from like the instructional side and the tech integration side. And I would have a much better understanding of just how everybody can work together to kind of get to the ultimate goal that we want, as opposed to just surviving day to day in the classroom and barely taking care of like my own lesson plans and my own students. So, leaning on that experience, that's my biggest sales pitch, is you really can't go wrong even if you have this internal doubt of like, will I miss it? Am I making the right move? Is this my next step? I would say that you'd be better off either way.
Love that. I think that's a great point. Thinking about kind of broad strokes here, what are some qualities and maybe some like tangible look fors that you look for on a resume? And I might have a little bit of a follow-up question to that.
So, on a resume specifically, I'm definitely looking to see that you have some sort of like real classroom experience. I'm looking to see maybe where that's at, what content area it's in. I'm looking to see maybe what other certifications you've earned, or possibly what other experiences you've had a chance to engage in, outside of teaching. So, have you taken the time to become Google certified, for example? Like in our case, that's something we might look for that shows, oh, this teacher in this case has gone a step past just doing what they have to in the classroom, and like they're self-enriching, they're learning new things and they're applying the skills that they've learned. That would be another thing that would stand out to me. I think another thing, maybe even, I don't want to step on toes of future questions, but like another thing that I'm trying to get from like the written word of a resume is just like, what is this person all about? You can kind of see it in sometimes in their career arc and like their educational background, and it paints a bit of a picture of like what they're looking to gain from their career. And sometimes if there's gaps or there's just kind of things that maybe don't connect a little bit, I want to ask about that if I do get a chance to speak with you. But sometimes you'll just see like this progression and it just makes so much sense of like, oh, they started out secondary ed, got their bachelor's, and then, oh, they went, in our case, got their master's in like instructional design. And they started off and did teaching for a few years. And then they got a supplemental as like the technology integration specialist in their district. And now maybe this is like the next step. Like this is the next logical step. So it's even kind of seeing like that progression in that career arc. And when I look at that, that definitely helps me whittle down candidates and I think find the ones that are just primed for like this is their next step, if that makes sense.
So what kind of building on this a little bit further, if somebody has, they have a, handful of years teaching under their belt, they're ready to dig in to a coaching role as their next step, but maybe they have coaches in their district so already, and so they're going to have to move and look at a different district, and there's not an opportunity for them to be leading professional development or guiding teachers right now. There's already someone in that role, or even if the school doesn't have the role, there's maybe not opportunities for them to do coaching if they're not in the coaching role. What would maybe be some suggestions of activities and some proactive things that someone could do to build that resume, to show you that this is the next logical step for them to fit into a coaching role next, without actively doing it and having the opportunity to formally have like coaching type experience on their resume?
That's a great question. I know thinking of some recent candidates we've had, just because you're not a tech coach doesn't mean that you can't, submit proposals to present at local, regional conferences. I think those sometimes are some of the best when it is a classroom teacher and they
And that
haven't
goes
moved into
easily
the
for
role
any
of a
type
coach
of
yet.
coach, not just a tech coach, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. This could be literally for anything. So, if you're really strong in literacy or math, or in our case, like tech, and you're a teacher doing some awesome things in those areas, I think that those are absolutely some of the best sessions you can attend, right? So don't be afraid to share what you're doing. And so maybe that's at a conference, maybe that's getting involved in some different forums online. I know that in some cases, there's a lot of great like online platforms that you can use to connect, whether it's Facebook groups or, Twitter X spaces or just like different things where people are talking about this and sharing and getting involved with one another. So that would be one thing. I would say another important thing too is, don't neglect like the power of you just attending some of those things and like learning what are some of the great innovative stuff that's like happening. What are other teachers around me outside of my school, my district, my area doing? I think that that also shows, even if you maybe haven't had a chance to present, but you still go, or you make that a goal of yours to attend some of these local conferences or regional conferences. There's just a lot of great learning that goes on. And I think that that shows your willingness to be a lifelong learner and recognize that there's things outside of your four walls that also are really successful and awesome that could help you be a better educator. And then I don't know. I feel like one other thing is maybe just willingness to volunteer for things that are available like within your district. I can think of some recent interviewees that we've had, and maybe it's not like at an in-service day where they're in front of like a huge group of people, but there's an opportunity for them to be like the leader on their team. And so, yes, they're not like standing up in front and doing these elaborate presentations and developing their speaking skills, but they're still developing kind of these inherent leadership qualities that you need to move people forward, to stimulate change in teachers, to take a position where people look to you and come to you for answers.
Mhm.
And I think that when you take advantage of those even smaller things that maybe no one will ever see, but they happen during like a team plan bell or after school, or there's like vertical alignment happening or whatever, those are all such invaluable opportunities for you to better understand how to work in more of like both a leadership and a support role, which is so crucial to being a successful coach. That those would be definitely some things you could do kind of outside of some of the built-in opportunities that some districts might have.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and kind of building on that last piece that you said, and then I have a few tips of my own I'm gonna throw out there to build on more of it, but, like, to that point of just kind of the skill set, common skill sets and look for of a coach, you've gotta be able to easily build relationships
Mhm.
with all staff members. So what are things that you can do to show and kind of put on a resume, and more importantly, be able to speak to it once you get that interview, of how you've built relationships, positive relationships with all types of staff members. How can you find experiences? Are there opportunities for you to volunteer to work with, first year teachers and mentor them, or to have some sort of, be a PLC lead or a team lead, and have some sort of feedback reflective mentorship type conversations with other colleagues, with other teachers. I mean, that's a huge skill set for coaches to have. Are there opportunities for you to do public speaking? You mentioned local conferences. What about even just at your local school PD day, right? There's a lot of times where principals get to decide what happens at the buildings, or, even at the district level. Are you sharing with people, to your point, Tyler? Share what you're doing. Talk about the great things that you're doing. That doesn't come naturally to educators, but if you don't vote for yourself, who will? So you have to advocate for yourself sometimes. That's a big thing you'll have to do as a coach. So get used to it. Start advocating for the great work that you do, and share with your principal, hey, I learned about this great tour. This lesson's been going great. I'd love to present if there's an opportunity at a PD day, or if you have coaches, ask them if you can present with them. So thinking of those skill sets that coaches really need to have, I would encourage you to. There's so many outlets, so many opportunities for you to build on those skills that will allow you to put those types of things on a resume, to share with the person looking at the resume that you do have these transferable skills, even if you've never done that particular role before. And then just a couple other things I would add to build on that, more informal things that you can do, but invite teachers to your classroom. You don't have to have someone else set up a whole structure for you to be like, "Hey, I'm gonna be investigating XYZ, instructional strategy, or I'm gonna dig into this curriculum a little bit deeper, or I'm gonna look at this tech tool that I just found. Like, come to my room after school next Wednesday. We'll look at it together." You can start to build this community, and invite teachers and start learning together to create these opportunities for yourself. I would also say a lot of times it's crazy. Was crazy to me before you took over most of the hiring, Tyler. But when people would come to me and they'd be like, "Yeah, we have coaches in the district," or people would apply who have worked with coaches, and they themselves never reached out to work with the coach. I guess, long story short, so I don't risk putting my foot in my mouth, but if you have coaches at your building, reach out and work with them. You can learn a lot from working with them to be able to speak to things that, just like we all talk about that great teacher that made us want to become a teacher, we can talk about this great coach of some of the qualities we want to carry on, and some things we'd like to, maybe we want to build on, or do differently. So work with a coach if you had it. Last two things. One, build a portfolio.
Sure.
If you are mastering some, like, instructional strategies, standards, tech tools, build a portfolio that you can share out, that shows how you have effectively implemented whatever coaching role you want to get, how you've effectively implemented that as a teacher. Is to be a good coach, you do have to have those foundational instructional skills. And then last thing, get active on social media or in some kind of a network. Start building your network up beyond and outside of the bubble of your own classroom, your own school. To Tyler's point, when you start connecting and seeing the great things that are going on outside of your own four walls, it will exponentially help your own growth, whether you stay in a teaching role for a few more years, or ultimately make that shift to a coaching role. You'll become a better educator no matter what role you're in, if you're actively networking and connecting with other people and sharing great ideas. So, those are some of the things that you didn't say that I would add to some advice for someone looking to build a resume to get a role of a coach.
I would just
Yeah.
I would just add really quick, guess what typically doesn't go on a resume? All of those things,
Mhm.
right? So when you're applying to jobs, how can you convey some of that awesome stuff that you've done? It might be wise to submit some artifacts from that portfolio that you've built up, or to create a cover letter and express how you've done some of these things, or how you've kind of gone outside of your own comfort level and comfort zone and have tried to extend yourself and share and develop a network. I mean, I think those are all things that once we understand that, like, you speak the language and understand what it means to be in this role, inviting you for an interview is easy at that point. But it's hard to tell from just a one-page resume that lists your, degrees that you've earned in your work experience. So what are some other ways that you might convey all of those awesome things you've been doing? I think that's also important to think about and give attention to, for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point, Tyler, and I know it would always catch my eye more to see an artifact, to see a portfolio, to see a super short screencast. So I can, because anyone can say anything in an interview, anyone can lie on a resume, especially now with AI.
Mhm.
Good grief. Like the to like spruce it up, but, like, I need to actually see that you can do the work. So I think pairing some sort of artifact or portfolio, that always put candidates pushed them to the front of me even wanting to bring them in for an interview, and then being able to have, like, much better conversations in the interview when I could actually see some examples of work that they had done.
How would you value something like a Google certified educator or even like a magic school training or an Adobe training certification? Where would you value that? Is that something to pursue?
What I'm looking for, in our role here as a tech coach, that shows me that you're coming in with a baseline of knowledge. So there's less for me to worry about. There's never the perfect candidate. There's going to be things that maybe you don't have experience in, or that's a blind spot for you, or is an area for growth. But because we are, in our case, like, looking for coaches who are probably skilled in technology or have an interest in it or savvy with it, having some of those certifications would give me, like, some peace of mind and help me to appreciate that even if you had additional things to learn, like, you'd be willing to put the work in because you've already done it with Google or Magic School or whatever these other, ambassador programs are, different certifications you can earn. So I think that that would definitely be helpful. And it would let me know that, you're coming in with a baseline of knowledge, which means there's less things to train you on and get you comfortable with, which means you would get to be involved in trainings and professional development and things like that so much sooner. If you're coming with some of these things to the table because we're like, oh, they're level 1 and level 2 certified, like, they'll be able to handle a Google Workspace boot camp or something like that. So that even kind of helps you give yourself as the interviewer a better picture of what this person might be capable of if they were to join your team.
And I would build on that, Tyler, for our more of our content focused coaches, not our tech coach listeners. That I would still agree wholeheartedly with what your answer was, Tyler. Just I I would encourage you. I don't necessarily have specific certifications or resources to direct anyone to, just because that is not the work that we are doing on a daily basis, like specific content coaching. But I would find the comparable certifications, comparable programs, um, even things like,
Curriculum.
yeah, yes, curriculum certifications, or, really diving into some of these things. If you're looking for a coaching role, I know there's some others out there. I can really only speak from experience and understanding to Google's certified coach curriculum. That is really a curriculum that you can do regardless if you're Google, Microsoft, Apple, whatever else. That curriculum focuses on coaching skills. So regardless of what you are on, it would benefit you to build up your coaching skills. So if you're someone looking to become a literacy coach, that might be a good certification for you to jump into, to build up those, like, questioning skills, those having reflective and guided teacher conversation skills. What am I observing in the classroom? All of those types of coaching
Mhm.
skills that you're ultimately going to want and need, no matter what you're coaching on.
Yeah. All right. Sounds great. I think so far we've gotten a great high level overview over what it looks like to be applying and what the trends are and what is important to keep in mind. We're going to take a quick break for our sponsors, and we're going to be right back with some more discussions about what comes up as challenges for coaches and our top 3 tips from Tyler.
Looking for a program that reaches all teachers and learning new tools to integrate in their lessons? Edu Badges is the answer. Edu is an anytime, anywhere badging program that is designed to take bite-sized tools for instruction and teach teachers how to use them. Edu has received the ISTE Seal of Alignment for educator standards, and each badge in our expanding library is aligned to the ISTE standards and the SAMR model. Learn more about the program that teachers call addicting at forward-edge.net/edubadges.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here with Tyler Erwin talking a little bit, giving a little bit of tips and tricks for those of you who are maybe considering to be a coach. I know a lot of our listeners are coaches, but maybe you have been stranded here with us on our island and considered maybe that's a career choice for me. So I think Tyler pointed out something really, really important in the first half of our discussion about leadership. And I wholeheartedly resonated with that. Showing some leadership when you apply is really important because when you do get into that role, I learned you are in a leadership position. You are working with teachers that are looking up to you to get help, to get advice and feedback. You come into a position of respect and authority, and so looking at that, there are some challenges that come with that. So clearly, you're looking for those things that will prepare them well. Can you tell us a little bit more about some other challenges that might come towards someone starting a career in this job?
Yeah, I'll try and be, as general as I can, but I am also going to speak from like the knowledge that I have, working for the company that we work for, the school districts that we work with more of like an instructional technology focus. I would say the biggest one that's, especially if you come from the classroom, is just adjusting to more of a behind the scenes support type role. It's going to feel a little bit different. There's going to be certain things that are definitely more ambiguous. You're not going to have a roster of 130 students and have your bell schedule all laid out and kind of have this very structured schedule of what the day looks like. And you are going to have to do a lot of relationship building to make your time really count. So there's going to be kind of a lot of this like laying the groundwork and building rapport before you can even start to maybe do some of the work you're there to do, and see the fulfillment of the job for what it really is. So I think adjusting to more of that like behind the scenes kind of support type role is a huge one. With that, I touched on it a little bit, but just figuring out how to create a good cadence to your day, filling out your schedule. What is the right balance? How many coaching cycles could I take on if I try and do them with teachers? How often should I push in? If I've never really had a chance to meet with this teacher before, like how many times do I keep pushing until maybe I need to give it a break? Just figuring out like that proper balance of how do I spend my time? Where is my time best spent? How can I add value? How can I reach out to all of the staff, not just the people who instantly take advantage and want to champion my work and are really like great examples of, following kind of the lead that I'm taking there. And so I think that that's a new challenge as well. I would say with that, I kind of mentioned even just like taking the lead with maybe some new learning programs or some initiatives from the district that you serve. In many cases, you're not only going to be the messenger of some of those initiatives, but you might be the person really pushing it, really helping teachers wade through that work together and getting them to the finish line. And so just figuring out how you get teachers to engage without it seeming pushy or evaluative or like there's some sort of like threat behind it if they don't work with you, or there's like this pressure to get everybody to do it. And so I do think it's kind of even figuring that out. How do I actually get people to, in some cases, willingly participate in the learning programs that I try and implement as a coach or that I try to support as a coach? So I think that that's a big one. The last one I'll say, and I saw that there was an article about this online. It was posted this morning, but it's just dealing with resistors, dealing with reluctant teachers. Every school has them to a degree. And there's all sorts of reasons maybe why they're like that way or why we might perceive them as reluctant or resistant to change. But if you want to have the best, most impactful time in that role, you can't just ignore them. You can't just like act like they don't exist on the teacher roster page and just turn your head when you walk by their room, right? So I think you also have to be really creative and maybe liken it to some of your students that were resistors in your classroom. And you might not use all the same tactics like that I would use with a seventh grader, but in many cases, people are people, and you have to get creative in the way in which you approach them, the way in which you speak to them, the frequency of how you engage with them, so that once again, you're not only just like meeting with the people who are going to champion your work anyways, but that you get to the people who maybe really need the support and just don't know how to ask for it, or might be resistant to it, but could also use your help as well. And so I think those are all new things that like a teacher maybe has to deal with a little bit, but when they get into a coaching role, will very much decide whether they're successful or not in the role. And so those would be some big challenges that you'll have to navigate early on.
Tyler, I want to build on just real quick, but you'd kind of alluded to it earlier in the episode about how, you're not looking for people who are just trying really hard to escape the classroom, because we talk about all the time. I have really noticed over the past decade, from my own self year after year to working with, seeing new coaches come into the role, is that they come in, myself included, like so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed about all of the things we're gonna do and how your energy is just gonna be so contagious. And then how you can often, even with the most gung-ho teachers, you can hit roadblocks sometimes because there's leadership changes, or, there's COVID, or there's like the fire drill today, so it threw off the time you finally got for PD. Like, whatever it is, things can happen. And so that's something that I've noticed that I would encourage people who are looking to move into this role for the first time to just kind of be real, be realistic, and honor and appreciate the small steps, because you are not going to walk in and make like sweeping transformational changes overnight or even in the course of a single school year. So I think that's like a reality that I have noticed. Like a little bit of the glimmer seems like it dims on people. They have like a kind of a dip, right? Like they start on this
Yeah.
high and then they get started and they realize everyone, oh my gosh, everyone isn't just on board with this like I am. And then they have a little dip in their glimmer, and then realize like, okay, I just have to recalibrate like what is considered success right now. And as long as we're all putting one foot in front of the other, we're continuing to move forward. Might not be quite as fast as we'd like to see it happen, but change is still good as long as you're moving forward in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about it. I think that that's just one of those realizations you'll have, and it might happen sooner than later with some, but you have to understand that, like you said, it's hard work regardless. So trying to escape the classroom, like if that's your motivation, you won't last long in this role either.
Mhm.
And so that's an important realization to have too.
Yeah. Cool. So we're gonna wrap it up. I feel like we need like some maybe steel drums, since we go with the whole like stranded on known island
Yep,
theme.
I'm writing it down.
We could like steel drum. What are your top 3 tips that you would give folks interested in becoming an instructional coach?
So I'll do some general ones first. This has become a bit of a pet peeve of mine. So this is really just good, like application call, I guess. But if you use a site like Indeed, for example, please, 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 like upload your own draft of a resume. Don't have LinkedIn or Indeed take all of your little entries and like make one for you, because oftentimes it will do so in a way that has like gaps or formatting errors or weird capitalizations or all these other things. And like, I'm sorry, but if it's between one that's well done and nicely formatted and has all the capitalization right, and one that's all over the place and not, it to me screams like a lack of effort, and it maybe screams a bit of a lack of commitment. And I'm not saying that, of course I've interviewed people that have turned out to be great, who've had Indeed make their resume for them. So it's not maybe a deal breaker, but it could be. It could be. So that would be one tip. I feel like, with that, just tip 1B, tailor your resume and your cover letter for the job you're applying for. Don't make it so general. And I understand that involves a little bit of extra work, but I think it's important, if you're applying for the role of an instructional coach, we just mentioned some of the things that are going to make you stand apart wouldn't typically be added to your resume. So when you go to create it, what things could you add? Maybe there are some like certifications you could list that would make you stand apart. Maybe there are some different things that you've done in leadership capacities within your school that aren't quote unquote jobs, but that would showcase that you've started to build up this record of leadership that would lend itself to the role. So it's a long tip. It's just make make the most of your resume.
Can I give a
Um,
1C based on your 1A?
Oh my god, a 3-part number
Want to
1
see
tip?
it?
Well, because I'm just thinking of a lot of our, we're collecting resumes, I think, in a different location than maybe a lot of where our leader or where our listeners would be applying, right? They're probably applying to like school consortium websites or to the school directly, maybe not on like an Indeed or a LinkedIn. Make sure your resume is a PDF when you upload. To Tyler's point, if it is a Word document, the formatting can get all sorts of goofy no matter what system it is that you are uploading. So my 1C is make it a PDF regardless of the site.
We want a 3 parts of the 3-part, Mateus. You knew
Oh
this was
my
coming. My second my second one is you've got to let your personality shine through in the interview. We've danced around it, but truly one of the biggest things I know Katie looks for, I know I look for, is we want to see your personality shine. We want to be able to tell instantly, is this person easy to talk to, approachable, and outgoing? If there's like a little bit of doubt, or we have to really like push for it or really draw you out, we're kind of thinking in the back of our head, how is this person going to do in certain situations where they're on the other side of the table and they're trying to draw out others? They're trying to establish relationships and build rapport. So, you don't have to make it a performance, but at the end of the day, I mean, you got to let your personality shine through a little bit and try and be as relaxed and confident as you can be. I think that's huge.
That is huge,
Um,
and that is the number one thing that Tyler and I are asked by school administrators, right? In our role, we are hiring coaches and we are essentially placing them to serve a school district. The number one thing that those school administrators, I can't tell you how many district administrators I've worked with about this, their number one concern is this person going to be relatable? Are my teachers going to be willing to open up and work with this coach? They care about that more than your instructional knowledge, more than your ability to use technology, more than, insert content, understanding. You have to be relatable and approachable as a coach to work with all types of adults. So that is a huge one, Tyler.
yeah. And I mean, I think lastly for me, the other thing that I would just be ready to share about is like what's motivating you? Why here? Why now? In our case, we have kind of a specific thing going at Forward Edge, which is awesome. But I'm sure even like within your district, right? If you were going to try and transition from teacher to coach, whoever is interviewing you would want to know like, so why? Why are you leaving the classroom? And I think that that's one of the things I'm always looking to maybe not ask like directly, and sometimes I do, but if it's unclear, that's something that I want to hear. Because once again, we already recognized the importance of it not being like an escape from the classroom. And if there's any intel of like, oh, this is why they're leaving, I'm going to press that a little bit and I want to learn more. Because I think it's important to note that we're still, and I think any district would be looking for a person who's still passionate about the work, who still loves teaching and learning, who loves students, who sees the value in it, and maybe isn't just like looking to get out of the classroom and looking to not be, have to grade anymore, or do parent teacher conferences anymore, or some of the things that maybe you don't have to do as a coach. And so, yeah, are there some things that can maybe annoy you and that you're like maybe happy to be done with out of the classroom? Sure. But what's the real driver behind the move? That's something I'm looking to uncover and kind of fish out of you. And I think that you need to be open with that and ready for some of those questions so that that can kind of be unearthed and talked about and addressed.
Yeah,
Great tips.
those are indeed great tips. Now, we are tempted to actually do another round of 3. Not like we haven't had enough yet, but
I'm ready.
kind of want to
Rapid
do
fire.
3 more, 3 things not to do, 3 things to
Ra-
stay away from.
rapid fire is not in my vocabulary, but I'll go quick. Don't be
Everybody's
slow to
challenged.
respond.
Oh.
Don't be slow to respond. It's very annoying. Don't lack an understanding of the role, or don't you have to do your due diligence. If you come to the table and know nothing about the role or the place you're going to work or what you're going to do, that screams red flags. And then lastly, be ready to ask some good questions. I've never been in an interview where the person hasn't been allowed to ask questions. And sometimes when I let folks ask questions, they're like, I don't have any. And that to me is like, what? You have no questions. And so that would be another big no that I would recommend you come prepared with some questions.
And I think too, I've seen a lot of people because I know when nerves get the best of you, it's like, oh my God, I had all of these questions and then I just totally blanked. I was nervous in the interview. So I get that. I feel for people. There's lots of nerves flying around in interviews. But I can't tell you how many people I've had in an interview and they're taking notes while I'm talking to go back home and talk about this with their spouse, with their parents, with, whoever they're going to bounce this career move off of with. And the most insightful questions also often come from people who have to look at what they wrote down. Like they made questions beforehand and so don't be afraid to do that either. As part of your interview prep, as you're understanding the role, as you're understanding, the district that you're applying for and some of the initiatives and things that they have going on. But write it down and bring it with you.
And one more little
For
thing I
sure.
will add right here. If you do find yourself with Tyler sitting on the other side of the interviewing table, prepare yourself for the question that is still haunting me, for which I still haven't found an answer. I got asked from you two, what is one thing that we don't know about you, but we will learn once you join the team? And I still don't know how to answer that question. I think about it every day almost. I'm not going to lie to you. It's true. I still don't know.
Well, you might have given away my secret question, Mateus.
No, well, I'm sorry. Maybe I have to cut that part. Oh,
Reel it back, edit it out.
there's my blooper part that goes out. All right. Well, thank you so much, Tyler.
This was a lot of fun, guys. Thanks for having me on. This was great.
Yeah, thanks, Tyler. And anybody listening, if you if you have your own tips to share or if you benefited from any of these tips, please reach out. Let us know if you have more questions. We'd be happy to answer and kind of give you some quick tips and guidance if you're headed into interview season coming up here over the next couple of months and looking to change roles or move into a coaching role or move schools. Reach out. We're here to help and help close that island and make your network feel a little bit bigger.
Yeah, whether it is a DM to our social media accounts on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever you find us on, or whether it is a post or a comment on anything that we've posted, we are always excited to hear from you. So please reach out, let us know what's on your mind. Thanks for spending time with us today. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with an educator friend.
And connect with us on social media at RRCoachCast to let us know what you thought of the episode and what topics you want us to discuss next.
New episodes drop every other Tuesday. Be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts.
So press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective.